today we have with us Professor N.S. Ramagowda, former Vice Chancellor, Karnataka State Open University, with us in the studio. Professor Ramagowda, welcome to this studio.
Thank you very much.
I would like to start with asking you about what are your views on learner support in distance education?
Learner support system in distance education not only has a crucial role, but it is absolutely necessary. In fact, that distinguishes between the correspondence education and distance education. Many times people ask us, sir, what is correspondence education, what is distance education? Our simple reply is correspondence education plus student support services is distance education. More than 100 dual mode universities are practicing distance education in this country, but unfortunately most of them have really not transformed themselves from correspondence to distance education. So it is absolutely necessary. And in what way it helps the learner, distant learner, is very important now. Number one, it breaks the isolation of the distant learner can be taken care of by the system of student support system. And also through the academic counselors, a kind of confidence is built in the distant learners. And also these learners, unlike the formal learners, they are busily preoccupied with the family commitments and also their working environment. So whatever stress and strain they develop either in the family or in the working place, that gets in a way removed in the student support system. So student support system should take care of removing the stress and strain developed by these learners at those places. And further, the student support system also helps in reducing the dropout system. Had there been a student support system, people would have just joined for the system. Over a period of time, even 75% of these people would have been dropped out. But for the support extended by student support system, most of them are remaining in the system without getting themselves dropped out. And it also ensures the instructional system and evaluation system, which otherwise there is no way of verifying whether the instructional system in place and it is being implemented, whether the evaluation system in place and being implemented, that is really testified and looked into action at the student support system, both the instructional system and the evaluation. So that way you can list out 100 and odd benefits of the presence of student support system, and without that the distance education system cannot survive. It goes back to your conventional correspondence education.
What are the roles expected from the academic counselors in the study centers?
In fact, when you talk of a role of an academic counselor, in the elementary terms we say you must play the role of an advisor, play the role of a counselor, and play the role of a tutor, advising, counseling and tutoring. And conventionally we also look the academic counselor as a friend, philosopher and a guide. And more than that, as we have said, the instructional system and the evaluation system in place should be ensured at the study center, which is a major part of the student support system. There the role of an academic counselor is a timetable is prepared, accordingly the theory and practical classes are taken by the academic counselor. Even though the theory is not compulsory, but it lies in the intelligence and the approach of the academic counselor. Even the theory class where theory attendance is not compulsory, he can attract lots of students even though it is not compulsory. So he will take classes of theory and practical as per the syllabus prescribed by the university. And also the distance education system makes use of what are called the self-instructional materials, and it is an highly structured reading material, and an academic counselor who is trained should be able to guide the students, advise the student and help the student as to how to use the self-instructional material. That is a major source of learning resources. But in addition to that, if somebody wants to be a student securing very high percentage of marks in his examination, he must also make use of audio and video cassette. So the academic counselor should tell the student, not only using them in the classroom and the laboratories, but also tell them how to make use of these audio cassettes and video cassette. And also when students are not in the counseling classes, when they are at home, when they are in working places, some kind of a group learning is encouraged, so that all put together they may even purchase the hardware required for using the audio video cassette. Otherwise, the use of audio video, even though they are so useful, so interactive, it is not being properly used. That has been our experience. So all these things the academic counselor should ensure, and for him to do it, he must be trained, and not only trained first time and left it, he must be retrained. And in fact, as you have the academic staff colleges in the formal system, which UGC has been maintaining, the kind of training that we envisage for academic counselors and other functionaries, it is not enough if you give training at one stretch, but it needs to be repeated at different levels of time, and especially when new programs are introduced, new pedagogies are introduced, you must update both knowledge and skills.
You rightly emphasized the role of training, training academic counselors. Could you specify on what areas, skills and qualities that the academic counselors should be trained?
In fact, the kind of training that the distance education system gives for an academic counselor is really unique. In fact, those academic counselors which are only part-timers with the distance education system, they are all fully employed and full-timers in a formal system. In the formal system, unfortunately, this kind of training does not exist, except of course the recent utilization of academic staff colleges of UGC. Otherwise, there is no hard and fast rule that they must be trained. So when they are trained in the distance education system, and they would feel that they can be better teachers in the formal system apart from teaching in the conventional system. And you asked me what are the major qualities that the academic counselor should possess to be an effective counselor. I think one of the major qualities that academic counselor should possess is that he must be a patient listener. Most of the time, the quality of a teacher is to speak all through the classroom. Yeah. Very seldom he would allow the student to interact with him. So here, one of the important qualities of an academic counselor is he must have a patient listening. Then only he is able to understand the academic problems, the personal problems, the other problems related to family. Of course, he may not be able to sort them all, but he must listen, and he should provide a good advice. So he must be a patient listener. That is number one. Number two, he must motivate the learning skills in the council and among the student by his personal example. What a teacher does, the students would, even though they are adults,